Okay, folks, welcome to our speaker series. We are very excited to bring to you a curated workshop series to build a more robust food recovery network and inspire a strong commitment to waste reduction practices. Today, we are going to talk about maximizing your food, how to store it right. And I am going to put a presentation on your screen here. Give me 1 second. You see my colleague Rose has started the chat there. If you have any problems, welcome. Okay, let's get started. Welcome. This is Maximizing Your Food. As I said, we're going to talk about food storage and how to maximize the life of your food so it doesn't become food waste. To go over our program overview today, we're going to do some introductions and housekeeping to begin with. Then I would like to go through the avoidable crisis of food waste in Canada. It's some research that we have put up from Second Harvest to understand the importance of what we're going to be talking later on. And we're going to move on to industry tips for waste management in restaurants and in general guidelines on how to take control of your food storage areas to reduce food waste. I'm going to go through this information the best way possible, but there's a lot of it. So I'm going to go straight and we're going to leave some time at the very end of this presentation for some questions, answers, comments that you might have. In the meantime, if something comes up to that you want to ask, again, go through our chat and you will see my friend Rose will be able to answer. Okay. I would like to start today with a land acknowledgement. While we meet today on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. We do this to reaffirm to our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all Inuit, Métis, and First Nation peoples that call this place home. Please join me in acknowledging the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can all in our each way can try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Thank you. And for those folks who are not familiar with Second Harvest, we are Canada's largest food rescue organization of unsold surplus food. And we have a dual mission of no waste, no hunger. This is our commitment to the planet that is both environmental and community focused. We have an incredible history of 36 years of rescuing unsold surplus food from across the food supply chain and redirecting this to social service agencies supporting their communities in need. Lastly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Norberto Cáceres. I am the Harvest Kitchen Manager at Second Harvest. I am a chef and I have been cooking in the city of Toronto for 20 years. And this is my COVID hair. Maybe somebody chuckled. I will not hear you. Before we get started, as I mentioned before, we would like to let you know that this session is being recorded and will be available on our channels at a later date. In the time being, your video is turned off and you're muted, but we do welcome any feedback, questions, comments, and if you're having any technical difficulties, please reach out to us. As you see at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that bar, and you can use the chat. You can direct the chat to either one of the presenters or the entire group. With this, I would like to go into our presentation. So I would like to share with you the avoidable crisis of food waste in Canada. In 2019, we looked at food loss and waste across the food supply chain in Canada and released this groundbreaking research. What we learned with it, we learned that almost 60% of all the food that is produced and imported for Canadians is going to waste every year. That is more than half the food that we have available to us, we are throwing in the garbage. The equivalent per year of 350,000 blue whales. That is outrageous. I put at the bottom of your screen a link to this. Maybe my friend Rose can actually put a link in the chat box for you. So you have it available. I recommend this fantastic piece of information, and also has some fantastic information. Of all the food that is wasted, there is avoidable food, which is unplanned. For say an apple that was bruised and never purchased, and then went into waste for a tiny little bruise. We've seen this happen before. Or unavoidable food waste, which is planned, is basically the byproducts of manufacturing or processing of food. It could be the bones, the husks, the skins, things like that. This is something that we have to take into consideration. There is room for improvement in both of these sectors, but of course the unavoidable one is the one that we're going to be looking at. Of that 60% of food that is wasted every year in Canada, 31.4% is avoidable, which means that we can actually do something really easy to solve this problem. The 31% is equivalent to 11.17 million metric tons of food. This is the equivalent of 90 CN Towers, if you have seen the CN Tower. This amount of food accounts for enough food to feed every Canadian for free for 5 months. Imagine that, because it's more than half of our food. To put into perspective, let's say Canada produces 10 apples a year. Of those 10 apples that we produce a year, right off the bat, we're going to throw out 6 of them, leaving us to share 4 apples amongst all Canadians. If we do something about it and we change, we know that 30% of those 6 apples is completely avoidable, which would put 2 apples back into the equation, and now we would have 6 apples to share amongst all Canadians. Very simple way to look at it. We're actually throwing out more food that we have available to us. In this graph, I'd like to show you where this food lost and waste happens. And we see that a big part of it happens in the processing, the production, the manufacturing. But there is also, we've also noticed that there is about 30% of the food happens at a hotel, institution, restaurants, household, and retail level, in which we're going to talk to today, right? This is something that we can all, from our household or our jobs in the restaurant or in the institutions or on retail, we can do something to change this. I wanted to show you this graph also that is very impressive. If food loss and waste in the world was a polluter, it would be the 3rd largest polluter in the world. As food decomposes on the landfill, it creates gases that are 3 times worse than carbon dioxide. And so food, the effects on the environment from the food that is decomposing on the land fits a bit among the 4 largest economies and the 4 largest polluters in the world. To finish this, I wanted to show you in other numbers that we produce enough food for 52 million Canadians every year. We have that much food available to us. We are nearing 37 million Canadians. That leaves enough food for 15 million people. And that is where that is where those 5 months of every Canadian eating for free come from. We're throwing out a terrible amount of food into the garbage every year or into our compost, if your city has that service. Yet 4 million Canadians are experiencing food insecurity in this country. And with the onset of COVID-19 and the repercussions of our economy that is receding and the unemployment rates growing, this number of people suffering food insecurity is huge. Well, right. So we at Second Harvest see this as an imperative call to action. We ask ourselves, how can we contribute? And on top of the work that we do every day, what else can we do? And it starts by sharing what we know. It starts by sharing the research that we've done and the knowledge that we have within our organization. And that's why we're here today. So today I would like to share this knowledge. We're going to move into our tips really quick. But our idea is to reach every player across the food supply chain, across this country that comes in contact with food. And if we can change our behaviors slightly, all of us, we are going to reduce food waste in Canada and make sure that the food is used for its intended purpose, which is to feed humans and not landfills. So I'd like to take you through today this industry tips for food waste management. We're going to go through store food correctly, and we're going to discuss how to maintain and oversee your storage areas, your refrigeration areas. We'll talk a little bit about stock rotation, especially with perishable items. We'll talk about a little bit about inventory and shopping lists and how they come together to help you plan for the future. How to label food correctly so you can rescue it further down the line from your freezer or your fridge or anywhere. Avoid overbuying. We discussed this later, and meal planning. It all comes together. And we're going to talk about best before dates in Canada towards the very end. It's a dear issue to us at Second Harvest because the consequences of this confusion create a lot of food waste. And then I'll give you some resources on ideas on how to donate excess food to different rescue organizations like ours. So let's dive right into it. Let's start going through our tips. To me, the single most important aspect of keeping your food and your storage areas safe is this phrase at the top there: start clean and tidy to help you stay safe. You see this photo on our screen here. It's empty shelves, clean floor, and that is the best way that you can start your storage area. Start from zero. Empty it out, clean it out, paint the walls, whatever it takes. But you start from a white canvas, right? From a clean canvas that then you can start creating your area there. Some of the tips that I'd like to discuss today are all storage areas must be kept clean, dry, free of pests. So if this is a dry storage or cantina or something like that, I recommend you leave the doors and windows closed at all times to prevent pests from moving in or prevent dust or garbage from flying into your area. So contained areas are a must. And the other thing is always thinking about pest control. In larger operations, maybe not so much at home, but in larger operations, I recommend having a pest control company that comes and monitor the activity in your kitchen on a regular basis. Remember that it's always easier to keep a pest out of your kitchen than getting rid of them once they move in. Once they move in, they live under your floor, behind the walls, in all kinds of areas that will be very disruptive for your operation, even go into renovations to get rid of certain pests, sorry. So another recommendation is to not leave anything on the floor. And of course, this is public health regulation, depends on where you are. So things need to be off the floor 6 inches and off the wall 2 inches. This helps also preventing pests from climbing onto your shelves and going all over your packaging and food. But as well, it works in case you have a spill or splash. Something goes onto the floor. Let's say you have a 20-kilo bag of flour. It comes in a cardboard wrapping, right? If I leave it on my floor and something gets wet, let's say my sanitizer chemical dripped into the floor, went and contaminated my flour. Now I have to throw out 20 kilos of flour. Not only am I losing money, but I'm losing all of the resources that are put onto that wheat in order to make flour, and the work of the people harvesting and the whole bit, right? It's wasteful. I recommend food safe containers as well, especially in the industry and in the social service industry that I've worked for 10 years as well. It's easier to just rescue a bucket and use it. But again, you need to be thinking about, is this plastic food safe? Is it going to leach free radicals of plastic into whatever food I'm storing, into my chickpeas? So always use food safe containers. I recommend that. To guarantee that your food is never going to be contaminated, that the container is safe with a tight lid so nothing can go into this container. Then I also talk about rotating inventory, but we're going to have a dedicated section to discuss this. But rotating inventory is very important as well to keep fresh. And don't do things that work against you. As we said, you want to stay clean and safe. So let's say don't use your dry storage area for storing your garbage until it's picked up by your service, because the garbage is going to attract pests all day long. So you're going to be trying to keep them unchecked, but then you store your garbage in the place that you don't want them. So do not use the same storage areas for your garbage. And also, that is regulation in the city of Toronto, at least. You can't store your chemicals in the same space with your food. But think about this. As I said, if you have a bucket of oven cleaner or something like that that spills over food, then you are wasting all this food. So they need to be separate. Don't do things that work against you. Fantastic. I would like to talk about refrigeration as well, and we're going to also talk about a home fridge, but I wanted to start with an industrial refrigeration. And here I would like to hear some of your thoughts. Why don't we go into the chat, sorry. And I want to hear from you, which one of these items listed on this fridge do you think is the least dangerous? And which one of these items on the fridge you think is the most dangerous? And then we'll talk about the logic of the order of this afterwards. But why don't you let me know in the chat here, what do you think about this? Oh, I need to launch a pre-evaluation poll. I see some folks are saying chicken, raw poultry. Yes, that will be the most dangerous, right? We're talking about that. Fantastic. Great. I am going to interrupt you 1 second because I would like to launch a poll here that I forgot to do at the beginning when we started the session. This will measure where we start from, so then we can evaluate at the end of the training where we are. So I'm just going to put this out there for you folks. Please take 2 seconds to answer these questions, and we'll continue. I apologize for messing up the order of things here. It's nice to see there was a good amount of knowledge in the house. So most of you folks will be understanding exactly what I'm talking about. Great. So most of you have answered here. Great. Okay, we're going to end the poll there. I'm just going to shut this. And now that we will go back, I apologize for this mishap. And we're going to, and we were talking about the least dangerous is the sandwich, says Lisa. Most dangerous the chicken, and exactly this is what I saw from most of you folks there. So I just wanted to make a quick note on the logic we use in the industry to store foods inside industrial refrigeration units. The raw chicken can be potentially the most dangerous thing that you have in your kitchen. So you will take precautions to leave it in the least dangerous part of your fridge, which would be inside a container or tray to avoid the dripping, but also at the very bottom of your shelf. So it won't spill, splash, leak into anything else other than the floor 6 inches away from it at the bottom shelf, right? The most safe product in this drawing is the sandwich. Is ready to eat, fully cooked. So the logic is that if a crumb of bread falls onto the chicken, it will not ruin the chicken. I can still eat it. Other allergens come into play, and this is a more complicated conversation. So now my chicken has wheat, right? This can also be, some people are intolerant, the whole bit. So, but let's say for practical purposes of contamination here, if a speckle of sandwich comes onto the chicken, nothing happens. Yet if a speckle of raw chicken comes into my sandwich, now my sandwich can potentially have salmonella and get me really, really sick. So this is just a quick logic I wanted to show you here. Same tips as we did for dry storage, right? Like clean, tidy. I recommend having not piling things on, so you have enough air to circulate around the product to keep it at the right temperature, so not overloading the shelves. And very important on the food service industry as well is temperature checks. Usually you have logs, so 2 or 3 people in a team would be tasked with taking the temperature every so many hours, and then you have a report of how your fridge is working at all times, and you can see right away. Let's say at 2 o'clock we checked, at 3 o'clock we check again, the fridge is way above a temperature, then we will have to do something about it. But we catch that by our log, by the practicing inputting all this information constantly. We can catch a problem to either empty this fridge into another unit that is working better, or call my technician right away to solve this issue. As most folks have a fridge, like a house refrigeration unit, things are slightly different. So we wanted to put this amazing graph here to demystify your fridge. They had to cram the space of a room that we have in restaurants or in industries that you walk in and you have shelves everywhere, lots of space. They had to cram all that into something that will fit in your small kitchen. So this is it. I hope you can see in the middle of the screen there, the yellow is your fridge. And I wanted to talk about the different components and some tips on where and how to store things within a house fridge that can help you preserve the life of your food. First, we're going to talk about the shelves. You will notice here that it's darker blue towards the bottom. So we know that towards the bottom of your fridge, the lower shelves of your fridge are the coldest part of your fridge. These are perfect for storing protein heavy, high moisture items like meats that you're going to cook right away, but you want to keep them at the coldest temperature possible in order to preserve them. Towards the higher shelves of the fridge, the temperature is slightly warmer. So these shelves are actually better for leftovers or dips, sauces, things that are not as delicate as your raw meats. Pro tip, I recommend having on there a tray with things that need to be used first, right? Like an eat me first tray. And then this could be a great tool for you. When you open the fridge, you take this tray out first. If you're going to make a snack, if you're looking for a snack, or if you're going to start a meal, you can see what needs to be used. Oh, look, I have this wilting green onions. I'm just going to incorporate it into the soup that I'm making today, right? If they are at the very back of your fridge, you're never going to use them, and then you're going to end up discarding it. So always having a priority use tray works fantastic in small fridges. And again, when you are preserving the meats, as I said on the industrial fridge, always better to keep it contained in a covered container, so you are not at risk of spilling and whatnot. Then we have the crispers, right? The crispers are these very confusing drawers that you have at the bottom of your fridge, that if we use the logic that I presented to you on our industrial fridges, it goes against everything we discussed. But because we will be storing, let's say, ready to eat apples underneath meat. But again, that's why I recommend that if you're thawing a steak, just put them in a Tupperware container with a lid on. Even if it falls, it won't spill, right? But again, going back to the crispers, these crispers have the ability to change the humidity content in them through those knobs that we never know what they're good for. And all fridges will work different, but I wanted to mention that if you close the air in the air intake, so if there is less air going into the drawer, then the humidity that controls the humidity levels, this means that there is less air coming in. You close the vents, so there's less air coming in, and it will be high humidity. Especially good for storing leafy greens, spinach, or even broccoli, carrots, things that need to have some moisture. If you use the other drawer for the opposite purpose, then what happens is you will open the ventilation, more air will come in, and it'll be a drier environment in there. This would be best for items that are maybe on their way out already. So you don't want the humidity to accelerate that decomposing process, right? So if I have an avocado that got ripe, I'll put it in the fridge to kind of slow down that, but I want to keep it as dry as possible. So then I would use that other drawer instead. So if you manage this, your food constantly, you can preserve the life of the food longer in your fridge. And then there's the door. The door is this like salmon color, pinkish there in the middle. And that was the warmest part of your fridge, right? Because every time you open it, you're getting a woof of hot air from your kitchen into the fridge. So the door is specifically good or particularly good for more shelf-stable items like your condiments, right? Like ketchup, you can have it out in the sun in a barbecue for 4 hours at 40 degrees in the summer, nothing happens to it. It's basically liquid sugar. So those things that are more shelf stable work great on the door of the fridge. And then I wanted to mention that I think my little icon photo there will be blocking the view, but that a fridge needs to be at 4 degrees Celsius or lower in order to keep the food outside of the temperature danger zone. Temperature danger zone is that range of temperature in which bacteria grows and reproduce very fast. So when we put things inside the fridge and our fridge is at 4 degrees or below, then we can guarantee that it'll be stay as safe as possible. I will reinforce again, not to overcrowd a fridge. You need that air circulation around your product in order to keep it at the right temperature. But also, if my fridge is packed, I can't really see what's in the back, and I keep using what's in the front, and the things in the back are going bad. You're losing money. Our research that I mentioned before, the avoidable crisis of food, says that an average of $1,766 per family or per household a year is wasted in food. That's almost $2,000 that you throw in the garbage every year with food. So imagine that. If you start applying all of these tips, you might be able to save. Not all of it, because some of it is unavoidable, but a lot of the food that you, that us, and I'm not blaming anybody, but that us are throwing out is completely avoidable by just learning little techniques and tips to make us rescue the food. Next, I would like to talk about freezers. I have found through 20 years of cooking that freezers are the first places to get out of control. I would like to see the chat again and see who remembers what temperature a freezer needs to be kept at. Is anybody going to let me know on the chat box? Yeah, I see Ravindar, yes. I see 4 degrees Celsius or lower is a refrigeration unit. So we discussed that before. Now we move into freezers. Freezers, as Ravinder there said, is minus 18. Okay, I have a few people very, very close. There we go. I'm glad to see. Minus 15, Angela. If you ever have ice cream and you notice that the texture of ice cream is softer, but when you put it in your house freezer, it gets really hard, it's because actually ice cream needs to be kept at minus 13, minus 14. It'll be a little slushier, right? But minus 18 makes it really hard. We've all seen the ice cream, how hard it gets in our freezers. Anyway, just to see you there. The row, there you go, Rose put the question. Fantastic. Okay, so I'll continue moving. The freezer needs to be at minus 18. That is the regulated temperature for freezers. That is the temperature that will prevent bacteria from growing and reproducing. In a fridge at 4 degrees, bacteria can still grow and reproduce, but very, very slowly. Okay, so the same tips will apply for freezers and fridges, like stay clean, stay tidy, air circulation, organization. But I also wanted to touch on, now that we know that it's at minus 18, maybe that is why, that's the reason why nobody likes to go and clean and organize the freezers, right? Your hands hurt. If you're in an industrial freezer, you walk in and you're wearing like a little t-shirt and you're there for half an hour. It's a horrible experience. It's actually used in the, that's why you send the kids, the graduates that are full of themselves to clean the freezer, to learn their place when they first come into the kitchen, when they want to be executive chef on day 2. The tips that I wanted to go through here are labeling, very important because it's very hard to recognize items in the freezer, right? You're using plastic, semi-see-through containers, so a little bit of masking tape and a Sharpie will take you a long way. Again, because you don't want to dump things in your freezer to forget them for eternity, but you want to use your freezer as a tool to another tool with the distinctive characteristics. So you're going to preserve something for a long period of time in a frozen state, but to be able to use that as part of your inventory, right? If I have labels of all the things that I have in the freezer, it's easier for me to plan the meals ahead, see what I need to buy and what I don't need to buy. So labeling your things is very useful. The other thing I'd like to mention about freezers is to stay away from glass containers. I like glass Tupperware. I have it in my house, but it doesn't go in the freezer. It's glass gets a little bit delicate in such a cold temperature, but also for whatever reason it cracks. It's the shards of glass look like ice, right? So you can potentially compromise all the food that you have in the freezer because something glass cracked in there, and then you can't find the piece. You don't know if it fell into another container, if it pierced a sealable bag. And again, I forget to mention sealable bags. Sealable bags are amazing. They're great for maximizing your space. And they also you can even put like liquid stuff. I can make a broccoli soup. You fill it, the bag standing up, you seal, you close the seal, and then if I freeze that, then I have a very, like you see the mashed potatoes in this drawing. You can do things like that with liquids as well, and it works great. So freezers. And then there's stock rotation. Stock rotation is imperative, and as I mentioned before, especially important when you're working with perishable items. It's a system that we use in the industry and that we call FIFO, first one in, first one out. It's self-explanatory, but basically it involves putting the oldest products that the products that have been sitting in your pantry for the longest, or in your fridge or in your freezer, towards the front, so you get to use them first, and the new order towards the back, so they don't. If I put my new order in the front, I'm always using the same product while something is sitting at the very back. So this is great to keep the food moving through your establishment, and you always have something fresh. Very, very simple system that helps you stay in control. Third, I'd like to talk about inventories, and this depends on the size of your organization, your restaurant, your kitchen. But even myself, I do it in my house kitchen, right? And yes, I have some bad habits from cooking for 20 years professionally, but I have an inventory in my head of what I have. For example, let's say I have 1 can of tomato in my pantry, and I know I have 1 onion in the cellar, and I have 1 pound of ground beef in my freezer, and a package of fresh pasta in my fridge. I know I have all these things. That allows me to think that on Friday night, I'm going to make bolognese with pasta, right? A meat sauce. As I use these products, then it comes into the list that we talk about, right? As I use the can of tomato, I write it on a list. And then next time I need to go buy any products, I know that I need to replace 1 can of tomato, 1 pound of beef, the onion, right? Or the pasta, if this is something that I like to eat on a regular basis. So even in smaller operations, you can have an inventory that allows you to plan and know what to come home with after you go grocery shopping, instead of coming with a lot of excess. If you are a large organization, if you're moving $10,000 worth of food a week, then you can't remember every single item. In which case, then there's the inventories. All restaurants, all professional kitchens have inventories, because you need to account for the money you spend and the money that you're making, and the food has to reflect that. For example, there's electronic ones like in the supermarket. All the food that comes into a supermarket is scanned in, and then as you go through the register, the food is scanned out. So they know at any given time how much food they have and how much food they need to order. Of course, in smaller kitchens, you just have a list, and I wanted to show you that there is a million different templates that you can find free on the internet, and you can make them for yourself. I would recommend that if you start doing an inventory, start with the items that are staples in your house. There is items that you use, that your kids like, that you have every week. Yet Sometimes that you forgot to buy it, or sometimes you bought too much and some of it went bad, right? So those things that you use on a regular basis that you like to incorporate into your meals, then have them on this inventory. Then you can keep track of how much you're using, when you need to buy it again for buy. So I recommend that the inventories that tie directly with avoid overbuying, right? The inventory has a direct connection to the grocery list for me. I have just a grocery list on my counter, right? That allows me to come home with only the things that I need and not the things that look great at the supermarket. So so yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to touch on is the to be cautious about buying in bulk or getting all these 2-for-1 offers, stocking up. I mean, it's great to be prepared and to have the food, but at the same time, if I know that I use only one zucchini a week and there's no way I can eat any other zucchini a week, then even if I go to the store and there's 2 zucchinis for the price of one, if I buy the 2 zucchinis, I'm going to eat my 1 zucchini a week, and then the other one is going to most likely rot in my fridge, and I'm going to end up throwing it out. So at the end of the day, these sales are probably best to analyze that if they're worth for you, if you have the capacity to deal on the other end with all this product that is going to come into your house. Remember, the store is not doing you a favor by selling you cheaper food, right? Clearly, they are also practicing stock rotation. Maybe this is me thinking about the corporate sector, but I don't think that they wake up in the morning and said, how can I make people's lives better? And I'm just going to sell them cheaper food. To me, this has to be with stock rotation or anything that the supermarket needs to move some money in order to either make space or pay for their next bill, right? That's where your sales come to be. Then we discussed a little bit when we talked about the freezer, but labeling food correctly is a paramount. It allows you to think, to plan ahead what you have, what you don't, how can you incorporate it into other dishes. So it helps you stay organized. I wanted to give you an example here. For example, if you don't have things labeled, right? And I pull something, a semi see-through container out of my freezer with orangey substance, and it could be butternut squash soup leftover from last night. Cold or frozen items are very hard to smell too, right? So let's say I can't identify this product. It could be butternut squash from last night. It could be roast beef drippings from last week that I was saving to make a gravy. Or it could be Thai peanut sauce that we had on our rice bowls last month, right? All these 3 things would look exactly the same when they're frozen, and I can't identify them. So, or I can't remember when I made them. I don't remember which one is this substance, right? So these little labels, and again, it could be just masking tape and a Sharpie, will allow you to utilize, right? If I save this drippings from the beef because I wanted to make a gravy next time I make something else, then I'm rescuing food, right? That was a byproduct. It was drippings. Really could have discarded them. But yet I'm saving them because I am going to, before they go into the landfill and produce all the problems that we were discussing at the beginning, they are going to have one more life before I use them, right? So labeling will keep you on your toes there to make sure that you're using all this food when you see the name. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about best before dates. And best before dates in Canada. This is a very dear issue to us in Second Harvest because the consequences of the confusion of the best before dates generates a lot of food lost and waste, right? So I wanted to touch a little bit on these 3 little points. And I wanted to mention first that there is no government regulation in Canada for best before dates. This is left to the manufacturers to decide how often they want you to buy this product. So the manufacturer will give a very very conservative estimation of the high peak of that, the peak quality of that product. But this does not mean that the best before date does not mean that it's a food safety indicator. It doesn't mean that after April 30, like this milk says there, you have to throw it out and go buy a new one. A lot of other variables come into play. And we recommend, we have actually, maybe we can put a link on the chat, but we have a lot of information. We have a lot of printable resources for you on our website, on our training and education website, that can help you understand this, and then also encourage people to practice using your senses, your knowledge, your instincts in order to determine if something is safe to eat. Smell it, see if the packaging is compromised, if it's swollen, if it has mold growing in it. You can see all these indicators that will determine if this is safe to eat or not. A yogurt is a yogurt, right? It is actually fermented milk that has a bacteria growing in it. So even if it's past my best before date, it's still doing its thing, right? And I can look at it, I can smell it, I can taste a little bit, and then I can maybe decide that I can eat it even a week or 2 weeks after its date, right? As long as, of course, I know, because now I am in control of my inventory, and I know that my refrigeration unit is working, and that it was always kept at the right temperature, and that there is no cross-contamination in my fridge, all the things that we discussed today. You can guarantee now that this milk has been safe all along, and it's just I didn't consume it in time, but yet I'm going to, before throwing it out, I'm going to make sure that I can't consume it. The as it says there, the best before date is not a food safety indication, neither is an expiry date. And that takes us to our next point, which is expiry dates. This is actually regulated in Canada, and there is only 5 items that are regulated to have an expiry date in Canada. These items are meant to support health. So we do not recommend that you consume them after the expiry date. These items are actually contributing something to your body that you can't get from elsewhere. So if that nutritional value is breaking down, then there could be major implications if you consume this product past its expiry date, correct? And these products are nutritional supplements like protein whey powder, formulated liquid diets like Ensure or Boost, meal replacements like Cliff Bar, baby formula or human milk substitute like Enfamil, and prescribed foods for low energy diets. These are sold at pharmacy. You need a prescription. They don't even have a commercial name. So any of these items that you come across with an expiry date, then we recommend staying away from them. The last of those points that we listed before was to donate surplus food to a food rescue organization. We might have the solution for you with foodrescue.ca. If you're an institution or a restaurant or even a social service agency, check foodrescue.ca. It's available across the country, and it's an amazing tool that connects the donor and the rescuer directly, and we're actually having a tremendous impact in food recovery through this app. So we recommend that. Now, if you're a household and you would like to also donate, I am sure, unfortunately, foodrescue.ca is not set up for households, but I am sure that if you ask around in your neighborhood, you will come across an organization that is doing hunger relief, poverty reduction, food security work, right? Somebody is around there that needs your support, even if you're going to volunteer or whatever. But reach out. There's a lot of folks, especially these days, doing amazing work all across this country. Before we move forward, I also wanted to go through this great graph that kind of sums up what we discussed today. And you see that at the very top, there's the green bar with the most desirable tasks or things to do. And at the very bottom, the least desirable, which would be garbage, and the reddish orange. I think that this kind of talks to all of the things that we discussed today, right? So the most preferable shop with a list and with restraint, right? We talked about not getting pushed to buy anything that we don't need. And the list will also make sure that we come home with things that we actually going to use. Store food well, we discussed all the different areas and refrigeration units. cook planned meals. If you know what you have in the house, you can tell what and when you're going to cook it. Practice emergency use it up measures. Let's say, like we discussed, that tray, right? To be picking from the items that need priority for using before they wilt. The dog scores, I love this one. I grew up in South America a long time ago, and when I was a child, there was no dog food. The dogs ate a pot of boiled rice with whatever bones were left over from the human meals, right? So think about your dog. Dogs can eat a lot of things. And then there's a compost. If you have a little bit of space, these days there's very space saving compost machines that are fantastic. And then you can actually make compost, make food for the food that you're going to grow in your garden, right? It's amazing. So your food becomes actually the food that will, it's a circular economy, right? So with this, we get to our end. I wanted to really quick go through what we discussed today, and shortly we're going to start answering some questions for you folks. Thank you very much for paying attention and staying on today. We learned today that through reading the Avoidable Crisis, it escapes my mind, sorry, I said so many things today. So we learned today that too much food is wasted every day. With this food waste and loss, we are also discarding precious natural resources and money. We're losing, we said we're losing about $2,000 a year, every household of us, right? We also looked at taking control of your food storage by exercising best practices like keeping areas clean, rotating product, purchasing responsibly, meal planning, labeling, etc. All of these things will help you reduce your food waste. And lastly, we discussed about the importance of best before dates. What does this mean? And also using our knowledge, trust your knowledge. Use your knowledge, your senses to determine if something is safe to eat or not before you throw it out. With this, I also, before I open the chat, I wanted to show you the link here where we're going, the different trainings that we have available for you on our website from our training and education. Fantastic resources, very easy. You can do it on your own time. So please check it out. Training.secondharvest.ca. We have a lot of amazing things for you there. And I also wanted to invite you to continue our journey through our speaker series. Next month, my colleague Krish is going to be putting these two amazing presentations, Eating Well on a Budget on March 17 and Eating Sustainably for the Planet on March 23rd. I am super excited about those topics. And hopefully you can join us, and we'll continue this journey together. So I just want to say thank you very much in my name, and thank you very much for Rose for supporting all of you. And I will be available now to answer some questions if you have them. And yeah, and that's it, that's all. So let me see. I see there's some questions in the question and answer. I'm going to start at the beginning. Okay. Rachel asks, I do follow the guidelines taught in the food handling certification course. Okay. So I see that some of you folks have been, these questions are answered. Is there anything that on the chat box? What special precautions from Gary? What special precautions have to made to make up and distribute food hampers during the COVID pandemic? What special precautions? The same precautions that you're using to stay safe, away from others, masks, gloves, will apply. For making the food itself, you want to be very aware that nothing that comes out of your respiratory conducts, like your nose, your mouth, comes in contact with the food, especially after you finished cooking it or packaging it, okay? So that's what I'm gonna say about that, but I would reach out to my local public health department for specific regulations that apply currently with this issue. Okay, let me see in the chat. So for Ravinder asks, how do we educate food recipient, rescued food recipients on how to deal with best before dates? We have, again, please, you will see, go to our website and our training and education. We have a lot of resources. We have printable resources that you can either hand out as handles or poll 1, poll 2. So look for our resources. We have some researches that we have done, and we also have the resources from the City of Toronto Public Health Department that can help you educate folks. But you know what? We have everything available on our website. Point people towards our direction. We can, once all of this is over, we can come to you and have sessions in person as well. I see Rose put on the chat there, training.secondharvest.ca, folks. Check it out. There's tons of amazing resources there for you. Somebody's asking about last week's webinar, and it's not up yet. We are creating a database in which all of these workshops are going to be available, but unfortunately I can't tell you when or how yet, but it will be very, very soon. We're creating a library to make it accessible for folks. Any new questions that I haven't answered? Sorry if I didn't see them. I was busy presenting. What is cross-contamination and how can we control it? Cross-contamination is the transfer of harmful bacteria from one place to the next, from one food to another, or from one food to an operator, which is me, the cook, or whoever, to the food, right? If I touch this computer and this computer is contaminated, and with my same hand, without washing it, I touch my sandwich, I'm putting whatever is on my computer, I am putting it on my sandwich. Cross-contamination is contaminating from one thing to the next. How can you prevent it? Hand washing and being aware of what touches what. If my hand touches my nose, I am not going to touch something ready to eat, right? So always be aware of what touches what and where are the most dangerous pieces. From Anonymous. Woo! What's special? Okay. Okay, folks, if that is all we wanted to say, no, we still have some time if there is any more questions available. Peel cut potatoes in the fridge. I would, once you peel them, the potatoes were oxidized. So they go gray or brown. So you want to make sure that you put them in water, and I would have them for a few days. If you didn't use them after 2 or 3 days, I would change that water and continue to change it after every day with very, very cold water. You are going to be washing out the starch out of the potato, which is basically the only nutrient in a potato, right? So you can keep them, I would say, a few days in your fridge. And if the water starts getting foamy, smells a little bit, change the water, make sure that nothing feels slimy to the touch. And then you can give it a couple more days with another batch of cold water. That was for Rochelle that asked. Okay. Any other questions? What is cross-contamination? Okay, folks, I see that nobody's sending any more questions. I just want to say thank you so much for coming in today and paying attention. Please do check our trainings coming up. I put them back on your screen there. We have these 2 amazing speaker series coming out to you in March, and keep an eye on us. We are going to be running the series throughout the year. And again, the training.secondharvest.ca you can find here. Somebody had asked about how to educate people on using food that is past best before its date. Check out the guide to food date labels in Canada. Amazing resources there. Okay, oh, I see there's more chat. I'm glad to hear that some of you folks had a positive experience and that you learned something today. I'm very glad to share all this. Last week we had safe food handling. Some of the questions I see today would have been answered last week. We'll hope to put that again back in the future, or once we upload our recorded sessions will be available. We have 5 minutes to go. Any last questions, folks? I don't see any new questions. Going once, going twice. Larry, I do not know exactly when are we going to be holding the next safe food handling session. But keep an eye on our channels, because we do publish them in all of our social media, and it'll be also on the Eventbrite page that we showed you for the March trainings. It'll be there as well. Cesar Gomez. We have to be from the same part of the world, Cesar Gomez. You're welcome, Larry. Okay, folks. Yeah, we are. I'm from Argentina, Cesar, originally. Okay, folks. Then with this, Colombia. With this, I just want to say thank you very much. There's no more questions coming our way. I don't want to. Oh, any session on vertical farming. That sounds amazing. My friend Rose there will most likely take a screenshot of this, and we'll push for it, but for sure. We're not farmers, but we know a lot of resources in the community here in the GTA that we could tap into. And as Rose answered there, yes, we have composting and regrowing food as well. So yeah, of course, continue checking out all the courses and speaker series and trainings that we have available to you. That sounds great, Ravinder. That sounds fantastic. I've seen great things on vertical farming as well. Exactly, right, Katya? If you have a balcony only to grow food, that makes a great food garden. Hydroponic, wow, we're going all out. We do not have a hydroponic trainings either. You might want to look into the folks at, is it, oh, I can't remember, sorry, I can't remember the name of the organization, but there is a lot of, there's great organizations for urban farming in Toronto, and I'm sure that they have some knowledge about either vertical gardens or hydroponics, and even like I've seen balcony gardens as well, how to grow food in your balcony. Super cool that Mississauga Food Bank has a hydroponic system. Oh, yes, of course. Rose is one of Second Harvest best. She is one of my favorite people, and a mentor to me as well. And she's been helping us all out today here. So thank you. Shout out to Rose for sure. Okay, folks. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate you joining us. Keep an eye on our channels, and we'll come to you with our next speaker series very soon. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. Have a fantastic day, and stay safe, please.